Noon, the temperature at kickoff time was 104 degrees. The Dolphins offense, well, it's been hot, and the Raiders defense has been cold. 24-0 at halftime. Now let's go back to New York.
In New York, Len Berman with Paul Maguire. Let's get you caught up on all the scores and highlights. San Francisco leading Denver 10-3 at halftime. Who would think with John Elway at quarterback, the Broncos wouldn't score a touchdown now in 8 quarters? What's with Elway?
I don't know what's with Elway. He's been sacked 4 times, and he's thrown 2 interceptions. Anything else?
Well, that's about it. And now it's 11 interceptions on the year for John Elway. Miami surprisingly easy over the Raiders, 24-0. That game at halftime as well. Phoenix beating up on Pittsburgh. The Cardinals could go to 4-2. Big afternoon thus far for Neil Lomax, 24-7 at halftime in that one. They're now in the 3rd quarter in San Diego. The Chargers are leading the New Orleans Saints 14-13 there. The Cincinnati Bengals have gone to 6-0. Final score of 36-19 over the Jets. Ickey Woods, one of the big stories for Cincinnati. 30 carries for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Bengals are for real the only undefeated team in the league now at 6-0. Seattle beat Cleveland. The Browns lost their 4th quarterback, and Mike Pagel 16-10 the final there for Seattle as Don Shula had to take over. Buffalo beating Indianapolis 34-23. Buffalo goes to 5-1. The Colts dropping to 1-5. A bad game in Houston. Houston defeating Kansas City 7-6. The Oilers are surprising 4-2. Green Bay finally gets its first win for their new head coach, Lindy Infante. Gets it in week number 6, 45-3 the final. Raymond Berry with lots to worry about for the Patriots. For one thing, he has to worry about his defense. Take a look at Brent Fullwood, 33 yards. Nobody can stop him. And the Packers rolling up to a 24-3 lead. And Darryl Stingley was on hand. Remember Jack Tatum's hit paralyzed him 10 years ago? Steve Grogan was the quarterback that fateful night at the Coliseum. Well, today Grogan throwing for Stanley Morgan. He's hit by Chuck Cecil, and it was shades of 10 years ago. And Morgan was carried off on a stretcher. The late word from the hospital is he suffered a concussion. He's being held for observation. A scary moment there in Milwaukee. Chicago defeating Detroit. The Bears go to 5-1. Final score there of 24-7. The Rams beating up on Atlanta. Tough year for Falcon fans. Hardly anybody showed up. 33-0 the final score there. Washington defeating Dallas fairly handily. 35-17. The Super Bowl champs go to 3-3. Minnesota edged Tampa Bay 14-13 the final. Tampa Bay with a late field goal attempt came just a second late. And in baseball, the A's going for the 4-game sweep. They lead the Red Sox 4-1 as they play the bottom of the 8th inning. Len Berman in New York with Paul. Now a station break.
Tonight, it's Disney's spectacular premiere, the entire Roger Rabbit cartoon, the new Davy Crockett, the absent-minded professor, and more. Then on an all-new Bloopers and Practical Jokes, the Cosby Kids pull a joke on Keisha, plus hilarious bloopers from Suzanne Summers, Golden Girls Rue McClanahan, and Betty White right after Disney.
Beers keep pouring in from all over the world, but the best beer still comes from Germany. And the best German beer in America is Becks, the #1 imported German beer.
In the event of welcome back to the Los Angeles Coliseum, where at halftime it is the Miami Dolphins 24 and the Los Angeles Raiders nothing. Both teams with records of 2-3 coming into this ballgame. I'm Charlie Jones. This is Jimmy Cefalo. But it seems like we have crossing patterns with the Miami Dolphins, particularly from a defensive standpoint, now shut out in the first half, and they just continue on that role of not allowing. But they seem to be on the ascent. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles Raiders seem to be on the downswing.
Yeah, in every respect. The Dolphins, as you mentioned, have now gone 25 quarters without giving up a touchdown through the air. It extends back to last year. And this is an area the Dolphins have hoped for years to improve, the defensive secondary. And they seem to have gained confidence. Tom Olivedani, the new defensive coordinator for the Dolphins, have got them going in the right direction. On the other side, the Raiders have played as poor a half as I've ever seen them play, particularly defensively.